Why does so much food go to waste? One reason might be that it's so affordable, it's considered disposable. Americans spend about 10% of their disposable income on food, a small percentage compared to other countries. But it's not that way for everyone. 49 million Americans sometimes have trouble putting food on the table. Much of what's currently being wasted could be used to feed families. Randy Mason introduces us to some people hungry to help make that happen.
You can just spread out all the way to the end and people can have their own little patch.
On a mild Saturday morning in June, a team of volunteers arrives at this small farm in Kansas City, Kansas, ready to glean. That is, gather the unharvested lettuce and other crops that might otherwise never be picked and waste away in the fields.
And if you fill your bags to the top, but you can tie it shut, that'll be 3 pounds. So this is like 3 pounds right here.
Another day, it could be a cornfield near Baldwin City.
Gleaning is biblical, thousands of years old, so we're getting back to some of the basics. Wow. Well, yeah.
Or
absolutely.
Maybe a patch of beets and greens in Platte City, Missouri.
When we're gleaning, they'll say, okay, you can have this row here, and we take everything. And it's after they're done selling that crop. So it could be the mustard is close to bolting or it has bolted. I mean, every farmer I work with is just so generous, and they would rather have their food feed people than even feed the chickens or compost it.
We started with a nonprofit called Society of St. Andrew. I actually opened that office in 2008. And over the next 6 years, we salvaged more than 15 million pounds of food to feed people. 15 million pounds.
Though Owsley might on occasion secure a donation of potatoes or some other crop by the semi-load, the bulk of what they collect still comes the old-fashioned way, one fruit or vegetable at a time. Food that's been left behind, largely because of aesthetics.
We've been to farms where they have squash, they're this big, but that's too big to go on the grocery store shelf, so you go and pick everything that's ugly or blemished, or still great edible food.
I don't care what it is, whether it's a strawberry or a beet or a piece of mustard, right out of the ground. It's so good.
And nutritionally good for the most food-insecure portion of our population as well.
When people do food drives, they're getting cans and boxes and not fresh produce. And, everybody loves fresh produce. And to me, that just completes the whole fun cycle of this.
Even crops that make it out of the field don't all make it to consumers. Farmers markets like this one on the square in Fayetteville, Arkansas, showcase lots of great locally grown produce. But by Saturday night, much of what hasn't been sold may well be tossed out. A troubling thought when you consider 1 in 6 Americans may be underfed. Don Bennett's Tricycle Farms is one of several grassroots groups in Fayetteville determined to take an active role in dumpster diversion.
We do our part in our neighborhood and distribute close to about 300 to 400 pounds of food each Sunday.
And at the University of Arkansas, another aspect of food waste is being addressed: leftovers from restaurants and cafeterias. It is, in a sense, another kind of gleaning program. 5 days a week, a student group called Razorback Recovery is saving salads, sandwiches, and baked goods from dining halls, retail sites, and events on campus, and taking them to Fayetteville food pantries.
The food's already there. It's already, made to the right standards and kept at the appropriate temperature. And so instead of it being pitched into the dumpster, they just put it in our fridge and we take it out to the agencies who need it.
The school's food service provider had some serious concerns about liability. What if their leftovers were mishandled and someone became ill? Nicole Savita, a faculty member at the university's food law program, says that is a common concern, but one that was largely laid to rest by a federal law passed in 1996.
The Bill Emerson Act does a very good job of balancing food safety interests and food recovery interests.
In a nutshell, the Emerson Act exempts those who donate apparently wholesome food in good faith from being sued as long as the food goes to a qualified nonprofit that feeds the hungry. Years after the law was passed, many are still unaware it exists. That led Savita to create a food recovery guide.
As soon as we published it, my phone started ringing on a regular basis with inquiries from people all over the country who wanted to promote food recovery and were glad to have a tool that they could use to go to a business and say, I know you're afraid of this, I know you think you're going to get sued, but here's how we do it in a way that protects you.
Which leads to the kind of place where most of us get most of our food. The kind of place where 40% of what starts out fresh ends up getting thrown out, though much of it is still edible. Grocery chains across the country are looking at ways to knock that number down. A pilot program at this Harp store in Fayetteville began setting aside and sharing food that can no longer be sold, but can still be eaten.
Takes just as much time as it would to actually put it in there and go dump it as it would go through the table. Same amount of time. One's actually helping somebody and one's not.
Our goal is to be proactive and see if we can shrink that 40%, one store at a time, and then once we get our systems together, be able to scale it up in a way that truly makes an impact. We want everybody who's involved in this program to be like, why wouldn't we do this?
By recovering the food that's not sold and gleaning the food that's not harvested, food gets a second chance to do what it does best: feed people.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.